Bob Galvin has Motorola in his blood. Learning early from his dad, Paul. At 16, he was working on the plant floor.
We were all very much of a factory family.
Growing up with Motorola, he became part of the creative fabric that from the early 30s gave Americans sound in their homes and cars.
For radio, straightforward radio, car radio, home radio.
Motorola provided critical mobile communications for police. In World War II, it was radio for GIs with the handy-talkie. Post-war, the company joined the new visual revolution.
Next sophisticated thing was television.
The Norwich Pharmaco Company, famous for fine drug products, makers of hospital-tested Pepto-Bismol, presents...
Motorola always was ahead of the technological curve. And the driving force was always Bob Galvin.
Bob Galvin was a real hero for American communications. He probably single-handedly drove the U.S. into the cellular telephone business and helped create a very competitive, very innovative spirit in cellular communications.
It was not just his vision with regard to the technology, the marketplace. The fact is, when you worked for Bob Galvin, you never had to worry about how ethical or how moral something was. If it was right, you did it. If it was wrong, you didn't even consider it.
With that philosophy as the bedrock of Motorola, Galvin transformed American communications.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
There are two things that Motorola did under Bob Galvin that were crucial to the development of the industry that we know today.
A few of us had a yen for the concept of a cellular telephone.
What Motorola did was created a parallel system of mobile pre-cellular telephones in competition with AT&T. So when, in the 1970s, the FCC starts to consider whether to grant licenses and radio spectrum for cellular telephone, Motorola puts in a competing proposal to AT&T's, and it's not until 1981 that the FCC decides that there will be 2 licensees in every market, and this was unheard of.
And I would suggest that if Motorola had not taken AT&T on, which they did head-to-head, that we would have a very different world today.
The second thing that Motorola did to give us the cellular world we have today was to constantly push for miniaturization.
The introduction of the cell phone on the American market and beating out AT&T, says Galvin, happened almost by accident. It was during a visit to the White House with an impromptu demonstration for George Bush and Ronald Reagan.
He said, "Show that thing that you showed me to Ron." So he said, what is this? I said, "That is a portable telephone." And he says, "Is it on the market yet?" I said, "No, your FCC will not license us." And so he turned to his associate, a staff man. He said, "You call the chairman tomorrow morning and tell him I want this thing on the market in 30 days.
One of Galvin's legendary skills is the uncanny ability to unite warring sides.
And the thing that amazed me about Bob was his listening ability, his ability to not only take in information, but then to synthesize it into something that was acceptable to a group of people who normally couldn't agree on anything.
A key operation around which we all try to achieve cooperation, and that is trust.
Objectivity. Personality never entered into decisions. You did what was right for the company, what was right for society.
In the 70s, at a time when American technology was reeling from overseas competition, Galvin countered, aggressively entering foreign markets.
He also was an American hero in that he pioneered the idea of the semiconductor industry in the U.S. being competitive worldwide.
One of the areas that was very significant was his early understanding of the challenge that was represented by Japan.
Motorola took the AMP cellular system and the Dynatac and its successors to Japan and brought competition to the Japanese market.
The marketplace rode over all the objections.
Not only in Japan, but China as well, proving there he was a powerful negotiator.
He posed 3 questions to the Chinese government. First, would you like to have in China the #1 wireless telecommunications company in the world? 2, do you think that you can create that company? 3, if not, would you be willing to allow Motorola to be that company for China? And the leadership in China determined that they would allow Motorola to become that company.
My son and I.
Today, Bob Galvin remains humble and modest, but his vision and accomplishments speak volumes about the man who changed the way the world communicates.
I had a distinct privilege of encouraging the next why not.